Welcome everybody to another one of our webinar series for product leaders. My name's Asa Cox. I'm the founder and CEO of Arcanum AI. I'm going to be talking today about product readiness for AI and how important it is to know where you can start, what opportunities you've got, what the journey might look for you. There is an opportunity for questions at the end, but feel free to pop anything into the chat if something comes up during the presentation. Arcanum's been around since 2016, and we've worked on a number of different product clients across the not-for-profit, fintech, telco, accounting, and insurtech domains. And we have also worked with government clients as well. But really the focus for this webinar is on products and technology products specifically, and how AI and ML can be applied to those products. In terms of the context for this, as a company, we help power widgets that are embedded into products at various stages of the product experience. And we provide all of the coding and the AI infrastructure to run those widgets in your product, in your environment. And so we've had a lot of experience in working through a number of different use cases, a number of different product pain points and opportunities, everything from digital onboarding and through to user engagement, and then ultimately how to scale those machine learning features in your product. And we'll touch on some of these things as we go through the webinar today. So the first point to make very clear is that AI ML is a journey. When you're starting out, it is very much at the beginning. You really do need to understand what the journey is going to look like. The foundational work does need to be put in to build the confidence, to build the capability to be able to successfully scale machine learning functions and features in products, to the point, of course, where you want to be able to have the capability, the skills and the resources to be able to transform or indeed advance your product using AI ML. I will use AI ML interchangeably for those who want to be able to distinguish between the two. Then there is really a nested kind of approach. AI kind of sits across everything. Machine learning is one of the subsets of artificial intelligence, but we kind of use them interchangeably. So we won't distinguish between the two during this webinar. So the question is kind of, is your product ready for AI, or how far is your product from being ready for AI? And these are the kind of things that we'll go through in this webinar. Understanding the importance of asking why, and then we'll go through the different ways in which AI could be used in a product, and the kind of data that you will need, and give you some examples of the ways in which we've supported product companies to execute on that, and then a little bit about the execution itself if you're going to do it for your own product or your own company. So really the first question is to understand why you are considering adding AI to your product. As the famous Cheshire Cat in Alice in the Wonderland says, if you don't know where you're going, any road can take you there. And certainly we see that quite often with AI projects, where sometimes there's somebody that says we need to add AI or we need to do AI, and everybody is doing AI. And so we think it's really important to really focus in on why that is. And so if you would do us a favor at this point and put into the chat box numbers 1 through 5. So why are you considering adding AI to your product? Is it number one that you've got demand from users for functions or features that you believe need to be powered by AI? Do you have competitors which are already utilizing or claiming to utilize AI in their products? Is it that you see opportunities or a demand and you're wanting to stay ahead of the market or ahead of your competitors? Or it's, again, something that you're exploring, you're just not really sure why you're doing it, you just know you might have to consider it. And then if you've got any other options, feel free to put them in as number 5. So thank you for So when we think about why, we kind of look at really the three key ones are that there's already demand from users. If we look at the major tech companies, the ones that we've grown to love or hate, I guess it depends, over the last couple of years, in the media and entertainment space, Netflix and Spotify. In the transportation space, you've got Uber and Didi and others like that. So we really see in the consumer life, in our day-to-day life, that there is machine learning powered user experiences. And as we begin to appreciate those at a consumer level, we see that our expectations when we go and work on or in other products, and that we want to see those same delightful user experiences, the same level of intelligence, the same level of capability. And so the demand from users is what we often see is driving the consideration of AI. Then in some markets where there are either very advanced competitors who have really invested ahead of the curve, they may well be doing it, or you may have upstart new competitors who are cloud native or AI native, and they've really built their whole product proposition around AI, and that's what's forcing you to consider how to catch up in that regard. Or it might be that you want to stay ahead. You're already going through a transformation. You're moving from a legacy product, and you want to be able to move into what do people want for tomorrow. So how do you continue to transform so your product is staying ahead of the market? Excuse me. And so when we look at the opportunities in product, we are going to focus on the external product rather than the internal product. But really, the same principles do kind of apply. You've got the major steps of acquisition, activation, monetization, and retention. And so there's definitely opportunities for AI to play a role in each of those steps. And obviously, when we focus on the user journeys, look at the functions and features that our users will want to get a delightful customer experience, then we can kind of walk through that with a lens on how AI can help. But firstly, I want to outline the kind of three different levels or tiers that we kind of consider putting AI ML into products. So at that very top level, we've kind of mentioned a few of them, ones that are ML native. Their whole proposition is based on the fact that machine learning is embedded into it, huge amounts of data, mass personalization, speed, complexity, all of those things which are being driven by ML, and they are native to the product. And then there's the integration of ML into other products where it is a core component, but it's not fundamentally across all of the products. So whether it be an accounting software like Xero, whether it be in Amazon.com with their recommendations, whether it be with Power BI with predictive analytics, ML is being integrated into the product, but we can't really argue that it's the same level as those in tier one. And then at tier three, you then have selective functions or features which are powered by AI. So in some of these examples, Halter is a collar for the ag tech industry to help farmers guide cows around paddocks. Again, it's a hardware product. It does have software, and it definitely does have machine learning as a component to that. And Apportio is an email parsing company. Again, they're using natural language processing as one of the functions or features of their product. So you kind of understand that when we talk about adding AI to a product, there are those different levels. And what we expect is there's not that many companies who are considering really being an ML native product unless they are starting from scratch. And what we do see is a growing level of machine learning integration. And then the very beginning of the journey, really, it's identifying a specific functional feature which will be powered by machine learning. And so when we think about the features and that you can add that intelligence to, that you can add machine learning to, you're going to fall into these four buckets. Being able to make a prediction, so predicting what a user will want to do, or an action it wants to take, or a task, and predicting what group or category that particular user might be in, or the path that they will take through your product. Off the back of being able to make those predictions, there's then the recommendations you can make, so that the next best action or because you are behaving in a way similar to another user profile, that you can begin to again make recommendations on the actions or the tasks that they would take on their journey. And then extraction is being able to take information out of typically documents, but also could be images, it could be audio files or video files, where you can extract information that the user either wants to pull out of that, or you want to be able to take out to personalize the experience. And then there's some opportunities on the kind of the back end of the product and the optimization kind of area. And that again, maybe around the performance of certain tasks. It may be the optimization of repetitive tasks. It might be optimization based on device or location of the user. And so there's a number of different ways in which you can consider adding intelligence through that feature layer. And so I guess the question that you should all be asking yourselves is, how do you identify opportunities for applying AI? And so there's one which is look into the data, and then the other one which is talking to your users. And so there's obviously benefit and value to both the qualitative and the quantitative, and we would certainly recommend looking at both. When you start looking at the data that you have, there's a number of different types of data which can inform how you could or where you should add machine learning features. So if you've got a product analytics behind the product, whether it be Amplitude or Mixpanel or similar, you're going to understand a lot about your user behavior. And that will help you identify either bottlenecks in the systems or repetitive tasks, tasks which take a long time, or similar patterns of behaviors across similar customer segments. And again, there may be opportunities there to add artificial intelligence. Then you may see more the performance-based data in the event logs from your cloud provider or from your data center, again, to understand where there are some opportunities to improve the user experience or speed some things up. And then you'll get feedback from your customers through your CRM systems or your ticketing systems, or potentially social media, which again are kind of making requests for new functions or features, or it may well be that there's some complaints or some suggestions on how to improve the product. And that may also come through some chatbots or email support or things like Intercom for those that have it on their products, on their web apps. And so when you start getting that data, you start seeing the patterns across those different types of data, and then you can begin to look into the journeys, the interactions, the kind of data capture opportunities, all of which could be improved using AI. And ultimately, how do you turn them into actions that can be put into the product that make the user experience better? Because ultimately, you want to move from just understanding what's good into being able to make an improvement in your product. And so we will use Netflix as a product example. They are one of the world leaders in utilizing machine learning for their product experience. So we will kind of use them as a bit of a case study as we go through some of these other examples. So at the very beginning of the journey of the product user experience, you've got the activation stage, Joe. You've got them to sign up, you've got them to come to your product, and whether that's a freemium or paid product doesn't really matter. And so you've got them to the front door, and now you want them to do the things that you want them to do. So then they understand the value of the product, they become activated, and they're either likely to stick with the product or they're likely to pay for the product. And so one of the opportunities in understanding your data is you can start looking at that segmentation and then predict the kind of customer activation journeys on those segments, and then potentially begin to offer a personalized kind of recommendation type process to help that onboarding process through to being an engaged and activated customer, which are much more likely to generate you revenue, or to become evangelists and start inviting other users as well. So for Netflix, one of the key things for them is that you log into their product using a social profile. So the common one being Facebook. So once you've got some of that information, Netflix can then really begin to already start making recommendations right at the very beginning. To kind of know your gender, know your location, to know some of the things that you like, And so then they can immediately start demonstrating the personalization power that Netflix has. And that immediately gets you to be impressed by the recommendations that Netflix will make for your entertainment pleasure. As an example of something similar that we did for a client here in New Zealand, it was a farm accounting software company, and they had a lot of free text user labels, and they wanted to better get to a place where they were suggesting labels for the expenses in their platform. And so we built them a generalized expense categorization model, which helped them get to that user experience. And as a result, they had a lot better customer activation because the value of the product was seen much quicker, and the onboarding time was reduced quite significantly. The next stage is customer retention. So you've got them in, you've got them activated. How do you continue to get them engaged? How do you stop them from leaving? And how do you get them to start using the features that may be on a path to an upsell or a new tier? And so that could be recommendations of different types. It could be behavioral nudges. It could be unlocking new features. It could be identifying that they want to go deeper into your product and kind of get to that expert level. It might be that they need to invite team members in order to really start cementing it into a workflow within the organization. and all of those things can use AI to start making recommendations. So again, in the Netflix context, we all kind of know that we get recommendations very early in Netflix based on what we previously watched. It will recommend things that are similar to that. But then we also, as we add family members to our account, then Netflix gets to understand the different dynamics in our household and can start suggesting other things that we may want to watch as a family. And then there's the discovery path. So how do you get into suggest things that whilst a user may not have watched something at all similar before, that based on all the information that you've been able to glean about them, that you think that there's a probability and that they may be interested in that. And so that kind of discovery recommendation, the kind of did you know type path is something which is becoming increasingly popular for those data-driven experiences. But there are many different ways in which you can predict, you can recommend, you can suggest that will really help people get more engaged with your product. And that can all be kind of powered by AI for that personalization. One of the clients that we worked with is a fintech company in the tax space. They wanted to improve their customer experience, improve their customer retention by automating one of the quite manual steps of their onboarding process, which was the ID verification. And so we built for them an ID extraction capability that allowed people to just upload photos of their ID, and then it would extract all the information as part of the kind of know your customer process, which really reduced a good amount of friction and removed the bad experiences that some users were having when it came to receiving payments from the platform. More broadly, there's the topic of optimization, user optimization. And this is really where you're looking at those data-driven improvements for tasks and performance. So if you've got a product which requires regular uploading of documents, is there a way to do that in a more efficient way, either as a big batch and then use AI to extract a lot of information? Is there a configuration step which every new user has to do, or if they're setting up a project or a task or a new workflow, is there a way to predict what they will want and then start doing that in a more templated fashion or an automated fashion where you can suggest a certain configuration and let them accept or reject it? And then there's the more technical kind of performance side. So Netflix, again, because it knows whether you're on Wi-Fi or mobile, it knows the kind of show you're watching. It has the opportunity to buffer the movies or the shows. That then means you get that kind of lossless experience. And then also, they customize the images based on your profile. So not everybody sees the same preview image, everybody sees the same highlight reel. And so being able to use AI to, again, have that personalized experience, but also make sure that the performance is maximized depending on the situation of the user, is something which makes the Netflix experience superior to others. We did this for an insurtech company. In order for them to break into a new market, they needed at scale to be able to extract large amounts of information from insurance policy documents. What they didn't want to do is to ask their customers to be able to extract that information, to put in all the information manually. And so we built for them a document extraction tool which pulls out all of the information on the insurance policies that they wanted to populate in their database. And that's really helped them to unlock a new market as a significant competitive advantage as they win customers from their competitors. But one of the messages that we really want to make clear is AI may appear magic, but it's not. It can't do things by itself. It isn't truly plug and play. You do need expertise. You do need some engineering capability. You do need some budget. You do need some time. So when it comes to executing, there's a number of different things that really you need to have be true in order to consider that your product is ready to start utilizing AI. So as we kind of discussed at the beginning, you really need to have a clarity as to why AI could be needed for your product. What problems is it solving? What UX experience is it improving? Is it data driven, or is it coming from a need in the market? Do you have the data and the user insights to identify those opportunities? Is it just qualitative that you're asking customers, or is it can it actually be seen in the data to really help solidify where exactly the technical pain points are? Can you articulate opportunities that can clearly generate very fast return on investment? One of the big challenges that we've seen is people think too big. They think about shooting for the moon, and that means it gets very complicated. There's a lot of change management, there's a lot of investment and time and expertise required. And really, the place to start is right at the very beginning. What is the minimum viable magic, or the minimum viable proof of concept that you can really begin to show the value of machine learning in solving problems or improving product experiences? And then inevitably there are going to be some pains of implementation. You may not have the skill sets internally, there may well be some problems with data, and so there needs to be a plan to kind of overcome the pains of either a talent shortage or some process problems or some technology problems. And so that's also something which, again, having that advanced warning, understanding what that journey looks like, really helps you to get ready for applying AI. And then, as I said, it is a journey. You do have to have the right amount of time, the right amount of budget to be able to apply AI. But it doesn't need to be months and years. It doesn't need to be hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. You can start very, very small to prove the business case and get your company on a journey to adding machine learning to your product. And so on that journey, we really do advocate for the crawl, walk, run process. Find something that you can do really quickly and really cheaply, and that you can learn a lot in a short period of time to build that confidence. And then iterate on it, make some planned investments, get some more commitment internally for a continuing pilot, and then turn that into a program of work where you're really looking to invest in the machine learning to improve the product on an ongoing basis, and that it is supported by internal resources, and there is commitment from the business for that ongoing investment. And then hopefully you can get to the point where there's a full function within your company that's dedicated to adding more and more machine learning to your product because you've proven that there is that return on investment, and that your users are rewarding you for the investments you've made in AI. And so to get on that journey, we offer support through that process, and we work with clients to build the business cases that they can then use internally to get the resources, the support, the commitment to be able to move forward. We help align resources in terms of what is needed on your side and what could be needed on our side as a partner, and what kind of budgets are required, what kind of data is going to be required, and how ready does that data need to be. where can it be accessed, what amount of data do you have. There is a bit of a misconception that you need to have lots and lots of data. We've got lots of tooling now which can really deliver value with a very small amount of data. And you need to have that experiment mindset. You need to understand, what does success look like? What are the criteria for testing machine learning with your product? And how do you set that up in your product? How do you A/B test some of the functions or features? How do you measure the success of that implementation? Is it by engagement level? Is it by time in app? Is it by revenue? What are the success criteria for those experiments? And then finally, there's the tooling. How do you actually build the machine learning? How do you deploy it? How do you monitor it? How do you retrain the AI to get better and better over time? And that's, of course, where Arcanum focuses its platform. So we've been through pretty quickly the kind of key elements for you to consider if your product is ready for AI, the kind of data that you can look into to identify opportunities. We've walked through some examples across customer activation, customer engagement, customer retention, and the optimization. And we've kind of gone through some of the patterns that we see in terms of that pathway to successful execution. So hopefully that's been useful for you as an introduction to product readiness for AI. Feel free to visit our website. On there is an online readiness assessment that you can fill out, and we will send you a report based on your responses. We do also have a service for assessing your data, and we have a number of ways that we can apply machine learning to data sets to start surfacing ideas and opportunities. More than willing to discuss that with you as for early access. And then we do private discovery workshops for small or large numbers, single companies or groups of companies, and where we walk through in much more detail all of the things that are required to deliver machine learning in a product and at scale. And so again, feel free to make an inquiry about that. And if you really are ready and you do want to get started, please visit our website, and there's a set of usable demos there where you can start testing the machine learning and AI functions with your data. And then we do have a free tier on our platform where you can actually go through and deploy a machine learning model into your staging environment and then start testing it before deploying it into production. And so we'd be very happy to support you on that journey and to start exploring and adding machine learning into your product.